Hello and welcome back to my channel Dinar and Dong Updates. The silent surge, why Vietnam could be the financial story. No one's talking about. Yet in a world obsessed with the usual suspects, China, Russia, the Eurozone, there's a quiet economic shift happening that barely registers on most people's radar. But if you've been paying attention to global capital flows, currency moves, and international investment strategy, you might have picked up on a subtle yet seismic buzz. Something's happening in Vietnam. Not in the far future, right now. Most of us grew up hearing about the Vietnamese dong as just another weak currency, not fit for serious financial conversations. It rarely made headlines, barely factored into discussions about global power plays. But that's starting to change. And fast. Major U.S. investment firms, real estate giants, and banking leaders have been making low-profile yet highly intentional moves into Vietnamese markets. Flights are landing. High-level meetings are taking place. Contracts are being drawn up. This isn't tourism, it's tactical. And for those paying attention, Vietnam may just be the stage for Asia's next major financial transformation. So what's really going on? Why now? Why Vietnam? Let's dig in. The foundation: 4 million homes and a new vision. One of the most ambitious undertakings currently in motion is Vietnam's plan to build 4 million new housing units. Think about that for a second. This isn't just about adding buildings, it's about reimagining entire cities. We're talking roads, utilities, schools, hospitals, transportation infrastructure, and commercial hubs. This is full-scale urban engineering, and it's being positioned as a central pillar in Vietnam's long-term development strategy. But massive construction isn't cheap. It demands resources, cement, steel, imported machinery, and manpower. And while Vietnam can draw on local labor, almost everything else needed for a project of this scale comes with a steep international price tag. Here's the kicker. The Vietnamese dong currently trades at around 1,310 to $1. That exchange rate makes it painfully expensive for the country to import anything from abroad. It's like trying to build a castle with monopoly money. Technically possible, but not without outside help. Why the US dollar matters so much? This is where the power dynamics of currency truly hit home. When your national currency is weak against the global reserve currency, the US dollar, every single imported item costs significantly more. A ton of steel, a barrel of oil, a construction crane. The margins get tight, the risk gets high, and the timeline stretches further and further out. So how is Vietnam planning to fund such an ambitious transformation? The answer is simple: foreign investment. And lots of it. American financiers aren't flying halfway around the world for nothing. They see a rare opportunity, an emerging market with a strong workforce, a growing tech scene, political stability, relatively speaking, and massive infrastructure goals. They're not betting on what Vietnam is. They're betting on what it's about to become. Setting the stage for capital. Stability signals. For foreign money to flow into a developing country, certain conditions must be met. Number 1, perceived stability. Investors don't just want potential, they want protection. They're asking questions like, will my assets be safe? Is the government backing these projects? What kind of tax incentives are being offered? Is the legal framework reliable enough to enforce contracts and protect returns? Will these urban developments actually be supported by infrastructure and not left half-built? The sudden uptick in U.S.-Vietnam business summits tells us one thing loud and clear. Vietnam is signaling its intent to create a stable economic environment, and that's the first move in attracting major capital. But there's another, quieter move that might shake things up even more: a potential currency overhaul. Deleting zeros. The reset strategy. Insider reports and speculative murmurs suggest Vietnam might be considering a move known as deletion of zeros from its currency. If that sounds dramatic, that's because it is. But it's also been done before, in Turkey, Venezuela, Zimbabwe, and others. Here's how it works. Instead of constantly dealing with inflated numbers like 1 million dong, the central bank could redenominate the currency by lopping off a few zeros. That means 1 million dong might suddenly be worth 1,000 in the new system. To outsiders, this can look like a scary devaluation, but when done right, especially in conjunction with economic reforms, tighter monetary policy, and international backing, it can actually reset trust, simplify accounting, and prepare the economy for larger trade and investment volumes. It's not just a psychological trick. It's a foundational shift, and it sets the stage for something even bigger. The digital leap, from paper to platform. While the rest of the world inches toward cashless systems and tokenized economies, Vietnam is leaping. The country has seen a sharp rise in digital transactions, the expansion of fintech startups, and a growing population of mobile-savvy consumers who are skipping traditional banking altogether. This is no accident. Vietnam is actively pushing for digital transformation, not only in commerce but in government systems, land ownership, ID verification, and even education. It's a national strategy that fits perfectly with its long-term economic ambitions. This digital leap is what could allow Vietnam to bypass decades of slow reform. By leaning into blockchain technology, digital currencies, and smart contracts, Vietnam might just sidestep the typical obstacles that trip up emerging economies, namely inefficiency, corruption, and slow bureaucracy. It's smart, it's forward-thinking, and it's exactly the kind of model that makes global investors take notice. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. As promising as this all sounds, let's be real. Vietnam still faces major risks. Corruption remains an issue in both public and private sectors. Bureaucracy can stall even the most well-funded projects. Political inflexibility can scare off long-term investors. And if foreign investors sense that these issues aren't being addressed head-on, with transparency, accountability, and policy enforcement, interest will vanish. Capital is loyal to one thing: return on investment. Not potential, not passion, results. This is why the current wave of meetings and negotiations is so crucial. This isn't just about business. It's about trust. It's about whether the Vietnamese government can assure the world that it's ready to play on the big stage. The X factor. The Vietnamese people. No plan, no matter how brilliant, works without public buy-in. If millions of housing units are built, but the locals can't afford them, or if infrastructure is built, but no jobs are created, the vision collapses. That's how you end up with ghost cities, soulless shells of development with no community, no culture, and no economic engine. Vietnam has a powerful weapon in its arsenal: its young, educated, and increasingly entrepreneurial population. The government and private sector must work hand in hand with this talent pool. That means offering vocational training tied to real projects, building universities and innovation hubs within new cities, prioritizing small business growth, including public voices in urban planning. Done right, this could create not just buildings, but living, breathing cities that sustain themselves through innovation, inclusion, and resilience. Learning from history, South Korea and Taiwan. If you want to understand what's possible for Vietnam, look no further than South Korea and Taiwan. In the 1980s, these countries weren't considered global economic powerhouses. They faced corruption, poverty, and skepticism from the global financial community. But through targeted reforms, international partnerships, and bold investment in education and infrastructure, they transformed. They didn't just grow. They leapt. They became what economists now call Asian tigers. Vietnam is in a similar position today. And for those who get in early, investors, entrepreneurs, visionaries, the returns could be enormous. So what can you do with this information? You don't need to be a billionaire to benefit from this insight. Here's how you can start positioning yourself. Watch regional ETFs focused on Southeast Asia. Explore tech and real estate firms operating in Vietnam. Research digital assets tied to Vietnam's growing fintech sector. Learn about currency reform strategies and their impact on inflation, trade, and growth. Track foreign direct investment data for Vietnam, especially from the US and Japan. This isn't about hype. It's about seeing patterns before they become headlines. Final thoughts. From whispers to blueprints. Some of the biggest financial stories in history started not with headlines, but with hunches, with whispers, with strange patterns most people missed. Vietnam's sudden rise in the global investment conversation isn't accidental. It's the result of long-term planning, strategic maneuvering, and a rapidly evolving digital ecosystem. But none of this is guaranteed. Success depends on whether the country can execute on its vision, build trust, and include its people in the transformation. Is it risky? Absolutely. Is it possible? More than ever. Vietnam might not just be building cities, it might be building a future. And those who spot the shift early? They're not just watching history, they're helping shape it. So what's your move? Stay curious, stay informed, and most of all, stay ahead.